Watcher Show. I'm your host, Matt. With me, as ever, are Nick and Mike. And we have an awesome guest with us this week, Mr. Erik Larsen. That's right, the Savage One himself. Welcome, Erik. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, man, I guess we'll just dive right in. Savage Dragon 250 shipped this week. That's enormous accomplishment. I want to just take a second to tip my hat to you. Looking back to when all this started, man, could you envision number 250 ever rolling about?
You know, you hope that it all works out and that this whole thing lasts, but you never know. You know,
Right,
just
right.
just kind of hope for the best. But you don't plan for that. I mean, you don't start off going, "I'm writing a 250-part story," because it's like that way lies madness. You can't do that, but you know,
Yeah,
you
I don't
just
even think Alan Moore could do that. But I know that for this issue in particular, I mean, Malcolm and his family are front and center, and it really highlights just how generational the book is with him and Maxine and the kids, and I just you don't see a lot of books like that,
no, you don't.
and I
No, you don't, and for good reason. I mean, these you can break your own toys if you're not careful, and people do. You know, if Marvel was to suddenly say, "Hey, let's age everybody," um, that would probably be a problem over time because you can't count on the next generation of creators coming up with something as cool as Spider-Man. You know, so it's like, oh, these
right.
characters going to get older and older and older. And even now, you got people going, well, when's he going to become a cop again? And when are we going to get back to the original Dragon? I don't like the kid. It just doesn't feel like the way the book used to feel. It's like, yeah, tough shit, man. It's like
Well, it's funny because the people that say that, I don't think they want to admit that Malcolm's been a part of the book since issue 33.
Yeah.
So,
It's not
writing
like
on
he
the wall
hasn't been there
on.
for most of it. Yeah.
So, fairly well known that Dragon is a creation that you concocted, back when you were younger in the 80s and published with in the underground comic scene at the time. And I mean, at that time, did you have the idea that, hey, maybe I could make this a multi-generational book, or was it more like, hey, I just want to do my thing and have it be cool and be mine?
Well, I created Dragon when I was in fourth grade, so he actually goes back way farther than your published history that you've seen. So I did about comics with Dragon in it prior to uh, doing anything with him where I published it. So I had a bunch of stories that I told when I was like a super little kid, and they were mind-numbingly stupid, but they were still like, that's what I did. That was my life. And in those comics, he had kids, and in those kids, uh, I magically made them older because I was impatient. But that was part of the gig. Was this is a character's life unfolding, not this is this thing and it's going to stay stuck in amber and is going to just stay that way forever. It was really the whole notion of it was, let's see this, let's try this out. And that's something people have talked about with Marvel comics and DC comics all the time. I think if you're a long time reader and you age like all human beings do, you get to a point where you suddenly realize, oh, I'm older than Spider-Man's supposed to be, and it feels weird. It's like, oh, I thought I was growing up with this guy, but I'm not growing up with this guy. He's staying still, and I'm growing. That's no good. but that's one of those things that people have kind of tossed around, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if they did this thing? And then they don't, because they can't, for a variety of reasons. But I can. So, let's try that out and see how it works, and see what works about it and see what doesn't work about it. And you find out all kinds of stuff while you're doing it, while you're experimenting with this stuff. Is that like, oh, this part of it works really well. Oh, this other part doesn't work so well. And there are many things that work better when you do have it kind of frozen in time, because there are just things that you just go, oh, this doesn't work great, because characters, that's a lot of time to actually have passed over the course of an issue, a full month worth of time. So inevitably, you just end up kind of skimming over a lot of stuff out of necessity, because you just can't cover a full month's worth of activities. And then that becomes weird, because then you've got villains who are planning things for years. They're just never getting around to getting their stuff done. And if they do, then stories seem really abrupt. Like, characters are just kind of doing things immediately and getting things done immediately. It's like, I'm going to make a plan this issue, and then I'm going to execute my plan next issue. Whereas, in a regular Marvel comic, you can have the Kingpin sitting there, basically plotting and with his looking out the window with his arms behind his back for several issues, and it's kind of fine. But it just gets weird when you start doing that in a comic which is taking place in real time. It's like, early on I had character get on a bus, and then over a course of a couple issues they became involved in the story. But it's like, how long were they on that bus? That just seems a little crazy that they would just be riding a bus for months. And it doesn't. So then you kind of learn, okay, well, this is the sort of thing I can do, and this is the sort of thing I really can't do, that doesn't really make much sense to do. And you just, it's like everything, you just kind of find your way after a while. But it does kind of seem like some stories can be sort of abrupt, just out of the nature of having to do things this way. And but with everything, there's pluses, minuses, because it's like, oh, it's neat that I can be here and have these characters grow up with me. It's like that part's really cool, that I can, as when I graduate from high school, this character is also graduating from high school, and now they're becoming adults, and now they're doing this and that, and it's neat to be able to kind of see that all unfold in a way. I don't remember what the question was, but whatever.
No worries, my friend. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, oh, great. Since we're here at 250, and what has been some of your favorite moments writing the Dragon, that you can look back on and go, God, this was such a great time, or maybe, God, what was I thinking, or what are kind of the standout memories that you have of these past 250 issues?
It's been there's just a lot of them, I mean, just being able to set things up over the course of time and pay them off has been pretty rewarding in a lot of ways. And then there's different things of just going, oh, I got to have God show up, and Dragon in Hell, and the devil was there, and that was kind of a big story, and that it felt big. It just felt like It was a huge thing going on, but really just being able to set little things in motion, like plant seeds as to that Malcolm is going to one day be the lead character, and then just bit by bit by bit by bit get there. Those kinds of things have been rewarding, just because you don't really get that in other things, and it's been pretty neat to be able to do a lot of that. In terms of like this issue particularly, I don't know. I'm not a guy who looks back a lot. My tendency is to be always looking forward and trying to see what's coming up next, and where I'm going, and what I can work towards. At this point I've got 4 kids, and I'm trying to sit there and sort out, okay, well, where are these guys going to be in 5 years time or 10 years time, and how do I pay off all these other things that I've got set in motion? So it's been interesting.
And that's definitely something I kind of want to follow up on, the generational aspect of it. And I get not really wanting to look back and planning ahead and setting the story in real time. Do you have some type of finite ending in mind that, like you said, you hope these things work out, but if they don't, is there something that you can move to that you're set towards, or is it kind of just an organic process?
It's very, very much organic. There are mile markers along the way, things that I'm sitting here going, I want to make sure I get to this or get to that, but I'm not sitting here going, I've got this definite defined number of issues that I want to do, and then once I'm there, I'm done, or once I get to this certain point, I'm done. Because there's just, somebody was asking me the other day about, what if you got hit by a bus, man? Do you have a last issue that's sitting there that you could just plop in that gives it all closure? And it's like, that sounds like an absolute nightmare to write such a thing. It's like, I'm going to have an idea as to where do I set it? Do I set it in the year 2050? And what's that world going to be like? Because I have no idea what the world's going to be like at that point, and neither does anybody. So what the hell would I even be doing? It just sounds insane. But yeah, it's all somewhat vague as to where is it all going. But like the whole thing, when I started it, I had things that I wanted to get to, for sure, and then you just kind of get there. You work your way towards it, and then you get there, and then it's like, all right, now what? Okay, I guess I'll pick something else to do and see how that goes. And then you get there, and it's like, oh, all right, where are we going next?
So one of my favorite characters I worry about the most in Savage Dragon right now is Maxine, because she's so different than any of the other female protagonists that have populated this book over the years, in that she's extremely vulnerable. And yeah. I feel like every month I'm on the edge of my seat, like, oh God, is this the issue Maxine gets ripped in half? Or, what have you. And it just keeps not happening, which is great because, it defies expectations. But I know when she first started, she was kind of just like this cool chick that was a little older than Malcolm that was into him while they were both in high school. And now she's, mother of his kids, and she's stuck around for, 75 issues. And I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about the genesis of Maxine as a character.
Well, she started actually really, really far back when Angel started going to preschool. So
Really?
so she was really, really far back there. If you look at I mean, I have to look it up. I could live look stuff up. Yeah, if you haven't seen the Savage Dragon wiki, that thing's good for all kinds of stuff. But let's see, what do we got? Profiles, characters, Maxine Dragon. Where are you, honey? Yeah, because she was pretty early on, and she was just it was a situation where she was first appearance as Savage Dragon 68.
Holy shit.
So yeah, so Maxine was one of Angel Murphy's friends when she first attended kindergarten, and then they remained friends over the years. And when I destroyed the world and pulled everything over here, there was that sort of residual, like, okay, they're still friends, and now that Maxine was sort of one of Angel's friends along with everybody else, and then you just sort of like, all right, well, let's get these things in motion and see where they go. Yeah, there's tons of stuff that if you look back, it's like, I can't believe that this seed was planted and that seed was planted and all this stuff. And there's a lot of stuff that it's been like, oh, look at you spending 20 years building something up. So you can
You mad genius.
Yeah, like in the back of Savage Dragon 250, I color and we see print for the first time Graphic Fantasy #2, which was originally published in 1982. And in that story, both Peter and Mark Johnson appear in costume. And it's like, that was published in 1982. Those characters just put on their costumes 2 issues ago. And so it's like that. So that was that. Their whole existence was set in motion. Geez, 40 years ago, really. I mean, that's been that's been a long time. I'm an old man. Holy crap.
I'm a big believer that you're only as old as you feel.
It's so
Mike,
it's
go ahead.
so weird.
Oh. No, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Okay, Eric, keeping it with talking about characters and their uniqueness, abilities, if you will. Over the years, you've had some really awesomely weird villains. One of my favorites is Brainy Ape, which is just his whole story is fabulous. What are some of your favorite villains that you've came up with over the years?
I like Mr. Glum a whole lot. He's been a lot of fun, and I mean, there's a bunch of things I like about him. I mean, I like Mako Along the Way. I like Brainy Ape a lot. I like Doubleheader. A lot of them are super fun to draw, and then there's a few who are a real pain in the ass, and you tend not to use those so much. There's a character called Double Page who's really fun to draw, but really oddly complicated because it's one woman sort of shoved through another one, and it just becomes super complicated as to which arm is whose and how does this work and how do they fit together. And but there's I mean, I almost have to be looking at the book to go, oh, I like this guy, I like that guy, because there's just various ones, and also I forget half their names. I just kind of know them by the way they look. You go, oh yeah, there's the dude that's got the bolts in his head. It's like, I forget what his name is every time. I always have to be like, wait, what issue was he in? And then I'll go to the wiki and find an issue that he was in, and then look up who was in it. And it's like, oh yeah, that's who it was. Roughneck. I remember now. It's with so many issues, you forget a bunch of characters. You stop being able to keep track of who's dead and who's alive.
Mm-hmm.
There's just, because it's just so much, it accumulates, and it's a lot of times I end up making up new villains because it's like, oh, it's easier than finding reference for these guys and looking them up, and so it's like, I'll just make up a new dude, but I don't have to worry about it.
Although some of your villains have had a lot of good longevity. I mean, Dark,
Yeah.
her predator, one of the good guys, and somehow or another, Overlord's armor keeps coming back. So these guys have good shelf life. And then, you look at the most recent issues with the children of like Octopus and so forth all popping up. And that generational theme and just kind of keeps coming back. And but in new and fresh ways. And
Yeah.
I don't know, there's a question in there somewhere. But I think it says a lot because, like, when the Vicious Circle started migrating towards Canada, and me, I've been reading the book since '96-ish. I don't know, whenever Dragon climbed out of that monster's ass when he was teamed up with Hellboy, and
Right.
yeah,
That's a mile
damn right it is. And just getting all these callbacks to these issues and things, and not in a way that panders to nostalgia or anything like that, but a logical progression and procession. It just shows to me that there's a lot of thought put into the, contrary to a lot of what your critics have to say, which fuck them anyway. But
Well, most of them,
yeah,
to
we're
be
dropping
fair,
F-bombs this week,
most
guys.
of them have never read the book, so
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to criticize something that you have no familiar with whatsoever. It's just like, oh, this book seems like this thing, and then unless you've read it, you're really just speaking out of absolute ignorance. So it's like, screw those guys.
Yeah. Well, the whole Hulk with the fin on his head incident comes to mind
Yeah.
when you say that. Not to open any old wounds, of course,
Yeah,
but
whatever.
yeah.
But it's like, I challenge you to find any issue of Savage Dragon where you could just plug in the Hulk and it would seem fine.
Absolutely.
There isn't. Because at a certain point, it's like, really, these guys are super strong and have green skin. But it's like, who else is like that? Martian Manhunter. And people weren't giving the Hulk grief for copying Martian Manhunter.
Right.
And he was introduced. It's like, oh, he's just Frankenstein. It's like, no, not really. So, whatever.
Nick, go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's not to follow up on this note, but I am a new reader to Savage Dragon. So
Oh, wow.
Jumping into this show, it was interesting to do a lot of reading. I've been reading Savage Dragon for a good 2 weeks now. And it is a wild time to jump in. And I think one of the quotes from Kirkman was like, if you are a fan of comic books and epics and you haven't been reading Savage Dragon, then you've just messed up. And I was like, oh, I feel called out on that one.
Well, I think it's a book that I think you can kind of begin anywhere. And it's like you either like the characters or you don't, but you can kind of start wherever you want to start. And I kind of liken it to just everybody's day in life, that you go, you never would think, oh, I don't want to meet that guy because he's got so much backstory. Could never get caught up on it. You just go, no, I'm gonna make new friends, and then if there's something I need to know, they'll tell me about it when I need to know it, and that's kind of where I'm at with the book. It's like, if you need to know that this is a returning bad guy and that there's some history that you really ought to be familiar with, I'll say that. I'll have that be in the book. So you're not going to be sitting there completely lost. That information will be dumped in there, so you'll understand what's going on. Every issue you're going to be reminded that, hey, this character is married with children, and these are his children.
Hmm.
And like that you should just be able to buy any issue, read any issue, and you may be confused as to every character's name, but you can decide for yourself whether you like them or don't, and whether you want to continue reading or not.
Yeah. It's super cool. I was just gonna mention, like, seeing you look up which issue number that this character appeared in on the wiki. That was just me before the show.
that happens all the time. It's such a frequent occurrence. It's not even funny. Plus, I got a continuity cop. I'm going to call him my editor, but Gavin is really mostly there to remind me, oh yeah, that character appeared here, and that was there, and don't forget this, and stuff like that. So he's super good at reminding me of all the minutia that I can forget.
But it's interesting
It's
because
I had assumed that was what Josh Eichhorn was for.
Josh Eichhorn is just filling up space.
I gotta know, what is your relationship with Josh Eichhorn?
Josh Eichhorn was my assistant, and he was my assistant to the degree that I needed somebody who could just kind of run basic errands. I had at that point, we didn't have the internet when Image started, so when people would write in letters, those letters needed to be typed, and so Josh Eichhorn would be a guy who was sitting there retyping letters and running to the post office and getting mail, and just whatever errands that there happened to be. And he wanted to have a credit in the book, so I just started giving him a nonsense credit of whatever, and then we just kind of kept going with it. And I met him when he was 19 years old. I was doing this character contest where the winner of the contest would have their character be able to fight Savage Dragon in an issue.
Yes.
It was way, way, way back in the very beginning. And I was getting a lot of mail, and I just needed a warm body to be able to run to the post office, get mail, run back, and open these things, and just do basic little stuff. And that's what Josh ended up being. And he worked for me for a number of years, and then he went off to go to school, and I just kept his name in the book because why the hell not? And once the internet came around and people were, all mail became email. At that point, his days were numbered, because there really wasn't that much he could do. He didn't do any art stuff really beyond filling in blacks. Sometimes I would leave like a big black area and put an X on it, and he could go in there with a brush and fill that in. And, but that's the kind of thing that literally any human being with any amount of control could do. So it's like, all right, I'm going to trust this guy with this. But but beyond that, he's just at this point just an old friend. So I met him when he was 19. He is currently 47. So we go back.
There is nothing wrong with a 28-year running gag.
It's like, yeah, no, it's crazy how much time has gone on, you know. And at some point, you just kind of look in the mirror and go, "What the hell happened to you, man?" And you're so unaware, or at least I am so unaware of the passage of time as you're doing this stuff. I just don't have all those mile markers that I'm supposed to have. You know, I still in my head think I'm 20 or something. It's like, what went on?
The book's also always done a really good job of being a reflection of the outside world, and I mean, 250 has been no exception with the reflection of being in lockdown during coronavirus. And what was it like trying? I mean, how did you reshape your script to reflect that?
Well, it took some retooling because initially I was thinking the story that I had cooking prior was going to roll into 250. That I was just going to have it be a big blowout with a bunch of villains and the vicious circle, and it was just going to be a big melee between all those guys and bring in all the Freak Force characters and bring in everybody and just have a big old fun time. But then it really became clear that, you know, this COVID thing was a big deal, and we were all going to have to be dealing with it. And it just became something that I didn't feel like I could just ignore. And so I decided, rather than ignore it, I'll just tackle it straight on and start incorporating it into the book. It's kind of made it so that there's this weird lag, which I'm not super happy about. Because right now I'm kind of putting dates on things. You know, it'll be like on a certain page, it'll say, you know, April 6th or whatever. And that's just because that's at the time that I'm sitting here drawing the page, that I can look in the world outside and go, okay, well, this is the state of the world now. Will kids be going to school in Toronto in the fall? It's like, I don't even know. The fall at this point is still a ways off, but I'm drawing my September issue now. So because of that, it's kind of necessitated me having my world be a little bit off from the world outside. Usually I would have it be really strictly like that day. This is taking place during the same day that it is in you know, that when the book comes out, it's like there will be events that are taking place on the day that it came out. But I can't really do that with the COVID thing, because I don't know what the state of the world is going to be at that point, you know. So at this point, I'm sitting there going, I guess the kids may be homeschooled at least for a little bit of this, but I don't know. So
Mike, go ahead.
Nothing.
Now, Erik, speaking of the state of the world, since Savage Dragon's inceptions, you've had presidents on the covers, and either like a happy accident being a parody, being a homage. Did that start out as a thing, or was that just like a, hey, let's keep it going type deal, and it kind of turned into like a happy accident calling card type deal? Because it's almost like we look forward to what you're going to do with the current commander in chief on what issue, and what's it gonna entail.
Yeah, I did kind of fall into it. I mean, I had done stuff. I mentioned George Bush Sr. in the first issue of the miniseries, so he was at least name checked. Um, Clinton didn't appear on a cover, but he did appear in the interior of an issue, so he showed up. And that was actually something that I liked as a kid, as a Hulk reader, is it seemed like they would always have eventually they would have the president show up, and it was sort of like an unofficial portrait of whoever the president happened to be at the time, and they started doing that with I think Lyndon Johnson was the first president that appeared on camera in an issue of Tales to Astonish that Gil Kane was drawing. And it's just like as time went on, it would be like, and here's the next one, and here's the next one. It was kind of a neat thing to have it be that these guys would actually show up. And with being on the cover, George W. was the first president to appear on a cover of Savage Dragon. So at that point, it was like, all right, well, I've set something in motion. And then the next one, the next one was kind of an easy one because it was like, this is history right here. So let's have this guy appear. And then I actually had him as a candidate. He wasn't even the president yet. I had Dragon endorse him on a cover.
That's right.
So that one was really kind of good. All right, let's hope this works. And it should just kind of been a situation since that's like, all right, well, let's continue with this and see how many more of these we can hit while we're doing this. It's a little weird now that the book is set in Canada, because it's going to be a little awkward if I'm suddenly putting a president on there, but it's like, well, whatever. I mean, characters can move and characters can visit, so.
There you go.
There's always Trudeau.
Yeah, there's always Trudeau.
There you go.
Guess I could get on that one, huh?
He's pretty.
He's pretty.
Yeah, Nick?
Yeah, I'd like to kind of take a step back a little and look at your role at Image Comics and the publisher over the years. It's done a lot for comics as a medium. I mean, my wife really doesn't follow any Marvel or DC or anything like that, but all of her top 5 books are pretty much from Image. I think they opened up they really did a lot of cool things for the industry. And can you talk a little about the position Image was in at the time that it was formed, and kind of the progress through the years, and how you feel it's positioned today?
I mean, it's always been a company that was doing creator-owned stuff, and it just kind of came into existence because we wanted to control our own destiny and control our own characters and create our own stuff and tell our own stories. And then as time's gone on, I mean, it was just a bunch of superhero guys wanting to do their own superheroes. And then as it went on, more and more people came aboard going, I got my own story to tell, but it's not a superhero story. I want to tell it with this and do my own thing here. And that's just become, okay, well, that's an option too. So do that. And it's been pretty great just to be able to watch it unfold and see people being able to have free reign and see what free reign means with various creators, because it's really an interesting thing. Just in stark contrast with when you've got things that are owned by other people. Yeah. You know, when things are owned by other guys, there is such a limit to what you're actually able to do. because there's so many rules that are put in place, and you're not even necessarily aware of those rules until you don't have them, and then it's like, oh wow, this is super liberating that I can do whatever I want to do. You mean whatever? And what does that mean? Can I, whatever? And it's like, yeah, you can do whatever. You mean I can kill my main character? Yeah, it's up to you. You want to kill your main character? Go ahead. Seriously? And not bring him back ever? Yeah, do that. I don't need to check with anybody? No. Okay.
And I think the case of Robert Kirkman, you can rely on solicitations for a few issues to really hide your story planning. I think you can't do stuff like that anywhere else.
No, actually, I'm kind of pissed at him for stealing my thunder, because that's what I wanted to do when I got around to ending Dragon. Was to just solicit it as though it were coming out forever, and then just have one just be like, the last issue, sorry.
Just heartbreaking stuff.
I like that though, and it doesn't necessarily mean, hey, everybody dies in the last issue. It can mean, hey, they live happily ever after, which is fine too. But I like that aspect of it.
Yeah.
That you can just go, I can do anything, or I can change plans midstream and do something else, just because I feel like it. That's fun too.
Well, in the spirit of taking creative risks, you've artistically and creatively shown a lot of flexibility over the years in Dragon, from the This Savage World Kirby homage to having Dragon quit being a cop to joining the SOS, and the more Stan Lee esque stuff that came out after 100 with Universo eating the entire world and changing realities. Just switching gears a little bit to you as an artist, you've done stuff like the double splash page issue, and just all kinds of different experiments, and they always seem to work. And how liberating is that for you, that you actually get to just say, well, fuck it, I'm going to draw on these giant oversized boards for this issue, or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's been great to be able to do whatever the hell I want, or to try all sorts of different things out. And it's also been a complete and utter pain in the ass, because I'll set myself up to do some of these weird challenges, and then some of these weird challenges have proven to be super challenging. Actually, the one I'm doing right now, I'm literally cleaning up a page as we speak, which is why I'm not giving anybody any eye contact, which I wouldn't be anyway, because I'd have to be staring off at that little light. But if you look, I'm looking down here, and I'm doing an issue where it's all homages to Sunday Funnies, and so so every spread is like a Sunday newspaper strip, and so the characters will go from looking like they're in Peanuts to looking like they're in Dick Tracy to looking like they're in just a bunch of different strips. And it is so challenging. If I had known going into it that it was going to be this much of a pain in the ass, I think I would have reconsidered, because it is a nightmare.
Yeah, but I mean, this many years in the game and you're still challenging yourself. I mean, hats off, man. That's so impressive. I mean, at this stage in a lot of creators' careers, they're very happy to just keep cranking out whatever's been working for the last decades.
Yeah. No, I suddenly that seems really appealing. Well, it's, you don't know sometimes what a challenge something is until you're into it, and then it's like, all right, now it's too late to back down now. But it's God. If I could go on a rant about modern comic strip artists,
Hey, the floor is yours, man.
Please.
No, it's some of these guys. It's been really, really difficult because I'm realizing. I mean, part of the thing with when you're imitating another artist, it's like you're not suddenly going to be able to draw way better than you're able to draw. What happens is you go, okay, well, this is this other artist's limitations. Now I'm going to take those limitations and add them to my own limitations. So I guess I have this, really limited thing. But some of these guys, I'm sitting here going, so this artist only can draw people facing forward? They can't even turn their heads at all? It's just straight ahead faces the entire time? How do I compose panels with that? How do I tell a story with that? It is so difficult. And then every single little thing you're trying to be on model, and it's like, he doesn't know how to draw hands. Well, how I drew a hand and it looks too much like an actual hand. Do I need to, I got to redraw this hand to look more like this broken, weird thing that this guy is doing. And there's just, there's some stuff that I'm like, I'm just incapable of it. Some of the old guys in their old, lush, beautiful comics, like, all right, I'm running up against a wall here where my brushwork isn't as good as their brushwork or whatever. And then with some of these new guys, like, wow, this is a whole different bunch of problems that I didn't think I was going to have to deal with. But it's been a challenge. And then another part of it is also because it's Sunday Funny style, the tendency is to want to do something that's akin to a gag. And then that can become its own problems. Like, all right, if you're doing it, because I'm wanting it to not only feel like, it's still got to feel like Savage Dragon. It's still got to feel like these are the characters acting in character. But it's like I'm sitting here going, well, how do I draw Malcolm in the style of the guy who drew Popeye? How do I do that and have him still kind of seem like he's Malcolm and not seem like he's just something completely crazy? Can he still have Malcolm's basic silhouette, or is that just so completely foreign that it doesn't even work anymore? And so that's been a pain in the ass. So it's like levels upon levels of things that are just absolutely mind-boggling to deal with. But whatever. There's all this stuff that's been kind of fun to play with. Can you tell an issue that's all splashes? Can you set up a 6-panel grid and keep everything in a 6-panel grid just throughout? Don't vary the size at all. Just have it all be there. Everything is in a different square. Trying out. I've done a bunch of different things, like you said.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite issues, I want to say it's like 144 maybe, but it's where every panel represents a day, single day. And I think you did that as a means of kind of catching up the timeline to a little more modern times, but it was halting at first because I couldn't quite figure out what was going on, and then once it clicks with you and you realize, wow, this is a comic with 4 months in it passing.
Yeah.
It's kind of this beautiful slice of life.
It was like 140 days or something. It's a lot of time, and that was also one where I was like, all right, I want every panel to be a square. But I don't want every page to just be a simple 6-panel grid either. So all right, let's see how this works. Doing some math and doing some whatever that is to figure out how to do this, and coming up with different ways of doing it. So yeah, that was super fun. And then there's the one where I started with a 20 panel page and then had two panels merge and then two more panels merge and just merge and then ended it on a splash. And that was like,
Yes.
I want this story to build, so every time it becomes a slightly bigger panel, it's slightly bigger for a reason. And it's just like, holy crap, man. There's a lot to think about there. But,
No doubt. Oh, and I mean, artistically, you've worn literally every hat there is to wear at some point or another throughout Savage Dragon. I know there around the 130s you were writing, drawing, coloring, inking, and lettering all together. My God, man, do you sleep?
yeah, I regret the lettering one. I'm really, really not good at that. I think if I'm going to letter it, I really need to figure something out, because that didn't work. Like, so if you find a style, you can make it. I could have made it work, but I don't think I quite latched on to something. I think it got a little better as I went along, but it should have been more like that story I did, The Fly, where the lettering was much more kind of crazy and expressive in that. And I think that actually worked a little bit better than when I was trying to compete with Chris Ziliopoulos and Tom Orzechowski and John Workman. It's like, holy crap, man, those guys are putting me to shame.
So I guess it was. I'm probably going to screw the exact number up, but around 150, you started working with Nikos Koutsis on colors. How did you guys come together, and what's that relationship been like?
He had pitched a book at one point, and I wasn't really that taken with the book, and he was looking for work as an artist, and I didn't have work to give as an artist, but I really liked the way he had colored his own little samples that he had done, and I was wondering who had colored it, and he said he did. So I was like, well, could you color a comic? And so he did an issue. There was a bit there that I was going through a period trying to figure out who was going to color the book, and so he tried out, and then a couple other people tried out, and he ended up being the guy that I was most taken with. So I just kind of took it from there, and that's how we've been going at it ever since. So yeah, he lives in Greece. So as I do pages, I send it to him, and then he colors them. And then, like that. I think my letterer lives in Spain, I think. So we're all over the place. Yeah, I'm not sure. I would have to look it up. But Farron Delgado is lettering the book now. And he kind of approached me with, because I did that Fantastic Four thing over at Marvel. And the guys who lettered it didn't quite pull off old school Marvel lettering, I didn't think. And so Farron had said, hey, if you ever want to do old school lettering, I've been translating comics for years now in other languages, and they'll have me letter it in other languages. So I've been trying to duplicate the lettering styles of pretty much everybody in the business. So if you ever need somebody to do Artie Simek or any of these old letters or even new guys, I'm super versatile and I'm your guy. And then it came up. So I tried him out and had him do some backup stories, things that weren't under heavy deadline pressure. And my God, he was good. And so from there, it just eventually got to a point where I was ahead enough on the book or found a way that I could work page by page so that he could letter it as I'm drawing it. So I kind of got to this point now where I'll draw a couple pages and then script those pages and then draw a few more and then script those, so that he is constantly being fed script and can keep up with me. And then my colorist is in the same boat. He gets sent pages at a time as they're being finished, so that when I get to my last page, we're done. It's like, I finished the page. It's lettered usually in a day or two. It's colored in a day or two and can be sent to the printer really soon after I've finished my part. And then the last day is me marrying the letter to the art. So I like to do that as part of it, so that I'm sending files that are completely flat to image, so they're getting something that's really ready to print. And we just take it from there.
So in the most recent issues, Nikos has employed kind of a flatter coloring style as opposed to his more glossy look that he's traditionally used. Was that something that he came up with, or a collaborative effort?
We go back and forth on stuff. It gets to a point where I'm like, oh, let's mix this up a bit and try something else. This next one is super flat because I'm doing the comic strip style, so those are all just flat color on everything. So this one will be a real anomaly in terms of the way the book looks. But yeah, usually it just gets to a point where I'm like, all right, time to mix it up. Because I like to mix things up on my end too. So, if he can mix things up on his end, we can just kind of keep things interesting. In a situation like this, it's like I'm not going to get a new artist on the book. I'm not going to get a new writer on the book. Other than characters constantly aging and changing and that sort of thing, there needs to be some ways I can mix this up, and that's one of them. It's just like, all right, we'll mix up the coloring and have that change up every so often, and then I'll experiment every now and then, do crazy stuff.
I think of the experimentation.
And it keeps it fresh. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, the experimentation is something that I'm already just super intrigued with what Savage Dragon has done, but also your career in general in comics, from the creative side to the business side, has really pushed the medium to the boundaries and kind of beyond. Do you feel Savage Dragon is the best platform to really push those boundaries, or do you ever feel like sometimes it's just too much to keep up with and you'd like to start something fresh?
Yeah, I don't want to start anything fresh. I'm too deep into this at this point. There's other things that I want to do, but it's really usually I'll find a way to fold it in to Savage Dragon at least a little. There's other stuff I've stepped out and done, a Captain America one shot, or I wrote Aquaman for a while and Wolverine for a while and Nova and drew a bunch of stuff. But it's exhausting, man.
Need sleep sometimes.
That's a lot of work. And whenever I do go and do a bunch of other stuff, I just end up missing just being able to just do my book and not have to deal with other human beings. I mean,
So,
it's good.
oh no, well, no, I was just curious. Since Nick kind of touched on it, recently you did have that Captain America the End one shot come out. I was a little curious how that project came around because it's a character that you're typically associated with.
Um, I think they were. I think Marvel was kind of thinking outside of the box with a lot of those things. Is just going, oh well, let's do the last Venom story, and let's have this guy who's completely unrelated to it do that, rather than somebody who's been completely associated with the character forever. And I think so. That was the idea of, rather than have it be guys who've been doing this stuff for a long time, let's kind of look around and see who else is out there. And the editor knew I was a real Kirby guy, and so he was just like, Captain America started off by Jack Kirby, and Jack Kirby did a lot of those issues over the years. Why don't we have somebody who's kind of harkens back to Kirby do the last Captain America story? So that was kind of my thought going into it, was let's approach this as Kirby style, as much as I'm able to pull that off, which is debatable, but it was kind of fun to fool around with that. And I used the standard Kirby grids that he was using, the square 6-panel grids, whatever. So it kind of had something of a feel, even if it wasn't 100% dialed in Jack Kirby.
Oh, I thought it read very well as a Kirby homage. So I mean, mission accomplished for whatever my 2 cents is worth. Mike, did you want to go ahead? Oh, Mike's muted. There he goes.
I was muted. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how computers work. No, going back, I have to know, Erik, it's more of a personal thing with issue 225 and the bagged version, the cover of it. How did that come about? Was that just kind of like a quirky thing? Were you trying to like do something like, let's try something out? Because I tell you, it made some headlines, or at least in my shop. They were like, oh, God, you thought the world was on end. But there were other covers to that book, and I never understood why people just went so sideways on it. It wasn't like you were forcing them, like, you have to buy the polybag version of the book, or
Yeah, no. I mean, there was other options.
Mm-hmm.
Pick your favorite. Try it out. At that point, there were a number of Image books that had put out adults only, or covers on their books. It was like, I want to say Sex Criminals was doing that. I don't have the titles in front of me, but there were a couple books that had kind of touched on them, and I had seen them, and I was like, these are super tame. It's like super duper tame, and so it was just the thought of somebody opening the bag and going, "Oh my God, that was surely it." And I realized it was a moment that I wasn't even going to be able to see. That was my inner Andy Kaufman. Was just like, I just thought that would be hilarious. And the artist who did it had done a backup story in Savage Dragon years and years and years ago, and he had since evolved to becoming this really great erotic comic artist online, and his stuff is just unbelievably cool looking, and and it was just like, well, I know this guy, and I've seen his stuff online, and so I contacted him, and we worked out a deal, and then there was a lot of back and forth in terms of what do you want, what's the approach, and so he would send a sketch, and I would send sketches back, and there was a lot of back and forth, like just trying to situate characters so that you don't see this. I didn't want to show Malcolm's junk.
Yeah.
Basically, it was like, I'd rather that part be a mystery. So, so it's like, all right, well, let me work around that. But the rest of it was just like, how can I just make this the filthiest possible thing? Just because I thought I just was thinking of people opening a book at home and just being like, oh my god.
Savage Dragon, what is this?
Sometimes I do things just to make myself smile.
Well, you got to.
Well, the book itself took on a much more hardcore, sexy time vibe around 225 too.
Yeah,
I know that. I don't remember the issue number.
A little farther than I'm comfortable with. A couple times there, so it's like, all right, well, note to self. But whatever.
It was funny.
Whatever.
Don't get me wrong. My
My
LCS guy, he's like, yeah, I have to sell this issue with Malcolm's giant explosion of splooge in a bag because nobody should see this.
Whatever. And then you watch a movie and they'll do something like that, and it's like a R-rated movie, and it's fine. And it's like, wait a minute, why is this okay? But whatever. I was just was in whatever mood that was. I just was consuming a lot of Robert Crumb comics at that point, and so I had just had all this stuff. I had just gotten a bunch of his sketchbooks, and I was just like, I'm gonna read through all this stuff. And I was going through all the complete Crumb, and like, I'm just gonna read this guy's entire career. Let's see if I can do that. And so that was like my nightly reading for a while. And I just got in that jag. I was like, I'm gonna do something like this. God damn it, he's got all this freedom. And then I did it, and then I was like, oh, that might have been a mistake.
That's funny. It's another example of how the book is always shifting and experimenting and trying new things. And I don't know against it. Thought it was a fun gag.
The downside of it is you've got people going, oh, it's just a porno book now, and it's like, if this is your idea of a porno book, that's pretty sad, because I mean, real porno books are much more extreme than this, and it's much more of that, like, constantly. That it's like, okay, I did a 3-page sex scene in one issue. It's like, come on, that's hardly anything, really. And even when I've touched on things again, it's been much more restrained in terms of like, okay, how are you going to actually place characters and place this and that? And it's like, Anyway.
But we've certainly exceeded an hour, so I don't want to take up a hell of a lot more of your time. Nick, Mike, do you guys have any final questions for Erik?
I just looked at 225 and wow.
I had no idea that cover existed prior to this show, and Mike mentioned it.
I just looked at it like, it's definitely that reaction.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted. First going for it. So
there you go. That's a mantelpiece in this house, by the way, a mantelpiece. But we got that right there for everyone.
Well, that's one that CGC, I guess, won't grade that issue.
Really?
Yeah, because they're like, I think it's just the cover, so it's just like, because they'll CGC other issues that have got vile stuff on the insides, but that cover is just like, okay, we're not doing this one.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, you prudes.
Right. Yeah. Oh God.
Not boobies.
Yeah.
It's kind of a final thought, Eric. I just 250, like we started off at the beginning, such a milestone, and as for someone to have written and drawn and every other thing in the world for 28 years now, how does that make you feel, man? I mean, are you tired? Are you ecstatic? I mean, you want to get a beer?
Well,
And I know you don't like looking back either. So
well,
I mean, I'm
thing
not
is that
necessarily fishing
I'm always
that
on the next one, So it's like when I get to 250, it's like, all right, time to get on to 251. It's time to get on to, and it's always the next step that it's like, all right, now I'm working towards 275. What are we going to do for that? What's going to be special there? If I do anything special at all. It's almost getting to a point where it's like, is 275 really special? That seems, but I'm looking back, it's like every 25 issues, I've at least made it a double-sized issue. So it means I feel obligated to at least do something by that point. But it's like, this is killing me, man. These like 100-page issues. It's like that's a lot of pieces to keep track of and try and organize.
Well, you and McFarlane are the sole remaining Image founders that are still going strong with your books, and I suspect you could beat him in an arm.
I don't know about that.
Maybe we should get Todd on the show and get his opinion, but it really is impressive, and it's there's no two books like Savage Dragon, and I really thank you for everything that you give us fans every time an issue comes out for as long as you have.
Sure.
And it really does, like, out of my collection, Savage Dragon really stands as a reading experience. So you've done something singular, and if you ever choose to rest on your laurels, I don't think you will, but because you got to at least beat Dave Sim.
Gotta get that. That's the white whale for all of us, is to get to that point. It's like, all right,
but
he set the bar, so it's like I at least got to get to 301. Crying out loud. I can't. I can't fumble the ball before I get there. And then, beyond that, it's like, how far can we go? And let's see.
Are you grooming any of your kids to take the book over someday? when your hands look like this and you can't, hold a pencil anymore.
Yeah, they're not capable. They did not get the comics bug at all. So they're all doing what they do. So it's like I'm on my own in that regard. I haven't even had them fill in blacks or erase pages. So it's really, really nothing at this point. I'm on my own, which is fine. I would rather it end up being one guy's story anyway, rather than a bunch of other people.
Makes sense.
Yeah, we'll see.
Let that be a lesson, folks. Not all stories are generational. There's only one Erik Larsen, and we've been lucky to have him here this week with us. And with that, thank you, Erik, for joining us this week. Thank you for donating your time to our silly little podcast. This has been episode number 90 of the Comic Watchers Show. You can check us out on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, all those cool type of places where podcasts hang out. And until then, support the comic book store and keep reading those funny books. Thank you, and goodbye.